A budding romance, sparkles and rainbows, vampires in the twilight, defying the God King, war crimes, the battle between good and evil, barbecued exotic meats, and mixed martial arts. All that and much more as we recap the entire Phantom Blood arc of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We kick things off in 19th century England, with Dio Brando coming across the wreckage of a horse and carriage. Oy vey, it looks like that family slipped off the cliff. I wonder... When suddenly the man awakes, with but one concern on his mind. My wife. Dio informs the man that unfortunately his wife has passed on, but his son still lives, and if need be, Dio would be more than happy to perform an emergency mitzvah. Even with no scalpel handy, he could make do. The man is grateful, but declines the offer, identifying himself as George Joestar, and pledges to one day repay his debt to Dio, as he believes Dio came to the carriage to offer aid, when in reality Dio was only there because George's ring was promised to him 3,000 years ago. 12 years later, George Joestar and his son Jojo are in good health, enjoying life on their sprawling estate, but the same cannot be said for Dio, as he has fallen ill and destitute and is not long for this world. As a final act, he gives his son Dio a letter outlining the Joestar's pledge to repay the Brando family, and tells Dio to take this useless world for all the jewels, rental properties, and coin clippings he can. Meanwhile, Irina is getting bullied by a couple of kids who took away her Irina doll from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, when JoJo shows up to save the day. Well, he shows up.
You okay?
Just leave me alone! I'll be fine! I did not take a beating just now.
Dio pays his last respects, or rather disrespects, to his late father, vowing to surpass him in life and claim all the riches and esteem that evaded his father's grasp. Dio arrives at the Joestar estate, greeted by an enthusiastic Jojo who anticipated Dio's arrival and assures him his dog Danny is a good boy and knows better than to nip at strangers. This gets Jojo all hot and bothered.
Why you kick my dog?
Prompting Jojo's father to scold the boys' hot and heavy exchange, but inviting Dio into his home nonetheless, informing the servants that Dio will be living with them from now on and to treat him as his own son. But when George is out of earshot, Dio makes it very clear to Jojo he has no intentions of reciprocating his host's warmth and affection. Dio quickly proves himself to be a devious deceiver, presenting himself as a model surrogate son, both intelligent and well-mannered, leaving Jojo's father lamenting his own boy's shortcomings. Dio continues to wear down Jojo both physically and mentally, turning Jojo's own friends against him, all with the goal of eventually usurping Jojo's inheritance and taking for himself the life Jojo was meant to live. This psychological warfare takes its toll on Jojo's well-being, leaving him shadowboxing the very thought of his tormentor, but leaving him down for the count all the same. But there is at least a single ray of sunshine to brighten Jojo's day, as Irina leaves him a basket of grapes as thanks for his earlier chivalry. Jojo can't help but smile, as it seems things might actually be turning around in his favor. He flips a grape to his best bud Danny, pondering the mysterious nature of the opposite sex. And here I thought feeding grapes to dogs was potentially harmful to their health, but I suppose Jojo knows better. He thinks of coming to the same spot tomorrow, in hopes he will meet Irina again, as he admits he has become infatuated with the girl, and hopes this is the start of an everlasting friendship. With benefits. The way to a man's heart truly is through his stomach, as Irina and Jojo soon become good friends, but their relationship stands in opposition to Dio's machinations, and he sets his mind to sabotage.
Jojo!
Irina, no. Dio, he slanders me. Love is far too strong a word. Intrigued, perhaps, but Irina. But Dio isn't done yet, as Operation Toxic Masculinity goes into full effect. The theft of true love's first kiss has its intended effect, sending Jojo into a fit of rage, seeking revenge on the one who sullied his beloved. But Dio is more than up for the challenge of another round of fisticuffs, and by no means is above playing dirty, as he rubs an elbow full of raspberry jam in Jojo's face, temporarily leaving him incapacitated. But Jojo knows he must prevail, and not just for himself, but for the honor of his dearest Irina. He gathers his strength and gives Dio an English haymaker right to the kisser, followed up by a flurry of blows, leaving Dio bruised, battered, and bewildered as to how a pampered brat like Jojo could have bested him. For now. The next day, the groundskeeper takes lawn clippings to the Incinerator 3000, only to notice an odd-looking box. An odd-looking dog-sized box. An odd-looking dog-sized box giving off the faintest whisper of a whimpering cry for help.
Oh well.
He lights the incinerator's contents and takes a moment to take a couple of hits from his Benjamin, admiring his handiwork, when suddenly a heart-pounding thudding comes from the inside of the incinerator, and to the groundskeeper's horror he knows this can only mean one thing. The young Lord Jojo fed Danny grapes. Jojo is racked with guilt, but can't help thinking Dio must have something to do with this. Meanwhile, Dio gives thought to Jojo's growing strength and resolve, and vows that one way or another he will be the one to live the life meant for Jojo, and will do so by any means necessary, even if that means feeding Jojo grapes. 7 years have passed since the grape incident of 1880, and from the outside looking in, it seems like Jojo and Dio have become inseparable friends, even co-stars of their university's English-American football club. But internally, Jojo is still suspicious of Dio's motives and earlier acts of villainy. His intuition is well-founded, as Dio has been playing nice these past years, hiding his disdain for the Joestars, never wavering from his ultimate goal of usurping Jojo so that he alone may inherit the Joestar fortune. Dio knows the time to make his move is close, as George Joestar has fallen ill, much to Jojo's dismay. It started as nothing more than a simple cold. How has it continued to worsen? To clear his mind, Jojo continues to try and decipher the mysteries of the mask that was once in his mother's possession. Having taken archaeology for his university studies, Jojo wishes to unravel the mask's secrets and make his mark on the archaeological world. In this pursuit, Jojo comes across a letter from Dio Brando addressed to his own father, outlining the symptoms of his sickness that was soon to take him to the grave. And Jojo realizes these are the same symptoms plaguing his own father.
This letter. Having read it, all has been made clear.
Jojo confronts Dio just in time to see him swap his father's medicine for a package he had in his pocket. Dio, what is the meaning of this? What have you been giving father in lieu of his medicine? I have only been giving our father the most effective 19th century medicine, such as mercury, yes, lead, yes of course, eye of newt, very good, arsenic, turmeric. Turmeric? Do you mean to season father to an early grave? Dio, how could you? With Dio's treachery out in the open, Jojo heads straight to London to discover an antidote for the poison to give to his father. Now you may wish to ask Jojo, isn't it insane leaving Dio alone with your sick father, knowing he wants him dead? Now left to his own devices, Dio recalls back 7 years ago when the mysterious stone mask Jojo has been studying reacted to his blood by ejecting spikes out of its sides, and plans to use this effect to put a final end to Jojo's meddling. Now in London, Jojo laments the university's inability to precisely identify his father's so-called medicine, although they were able to speculate it did come from somewhere in Asia. Jojo knows he must now look for answers down Ogre Street, the most notorious alleyway in all of London. And be it a dark alleyway or Buckingham Palace, London's gonna London, and Jojo immediately gets stabbed. But rather than seek vengeance on his attackers, Jojo Ever the Gentleman chooses empathy and restraint, earning the admiration of Robert E.O. Speedwagon, who pledges to aid Jojo's cause in helping his father. Evening falls as Dio swigs down a bottle of Conor McGregor's proper number 12 Irish whiskey, naturally putting him in the mood to fight the elderly. Dio further sees this as an opportunity to test the stone mask in the event he does meet with Jojo again. At first it seems to have no effect, but then...
I know what you are.
Say it out loud.
Vampire.
The secret of the mask is finally revealed. A proper fit and a spot of blood turns its wearer into real-life vampires. Super speed, yes. Super strength, yes. Garlic bread for dinner? No. Would you take that deal? Oh, and no more sunlight, but let's be real. It's not like anime watchers are outside touching grass anyway. Dio manages to make his way back to the Joestar Manor, only to find Jojo has returned, and with him proof of Dio's poisoning of George Joestar. But what Jojo didn't bring was a single souvenir from his trip to London for Dio. With the required proof of Dio's poisoning of George Joestar, Jojo confronts the conniving Dio. With no other recourse, Dio squirts out a couple of crocodile tears, professing regret for his actions, and may have gotten away with tricking Jojo if it weren't for that meddling Speedwagon, who convinces Jojo of Dio's deceit, revealing the chink in Dio's sincerity, the man who sold Dio the poison. As the authorities move to arrest Dio, he takes out the stone mask and declares his forsaking of humanity. This naturally puts JoJo on high alert, prepared for whatever treachery Dio has planned.
JoJo, your blood is the key!
The one thing no one could have seen coming. Well, almost no one, as it was in fact George Joestar heroically throwing himself in front of the blade meant for his son. Dio dons the stone mask as George's blood splatters all over him, just as he is filled with bullets, surely putting an end to his life. But even in his dying moments, George Joestar shows himself to be mercy manifest, and implores JoJo not to harbor resentment towards Dio's memory and ensure Dio is buried next to his father. And with his final breath, he asks JoJo not to be so sad, after all.
We're better to die than in the arms of my son.
Well, I appreciate the optimism there, bud, silver lining and all, but perhaps from a certain point of view, having your own father die in your very hands may very much be a cause for sadness. But wait. Dio's body has vanished, and with quick thinking, Speedwagon warns the inspector to move away from the window. When you say move away from the window, do you mean... Dio Brando is now a vampire. With his newfound strength and resistance to mortal weaponry, Dio makes quick work of the remaining police force. But even in death, there is no protection from Dio's newfound demonic gifts, and the corpses of the fallen now join in Dio's army of the damned. But Jonathan Joestar will not be going down without a fight, as once again Dio displays his newfound unholy power. With a last-ditch effort to put an end to the one he once called brother, JoJo sets the Joestar mansion ablaze. But disobeying the laws of man is not enough for Dio, as he disregards the law of gravity and thermodynamics to seek vengeance on the one who foiled his grand plans. With the full scope of what he is up against, JoJo's life flashes before his eyes. He understands what he must do to cast this devil back to hell and save humanity from its malevolence.
Win 18! Win 19!
JoJo and Dio are then in freefall for a really long time. Keeping in mind this is still inside the Joestar mansion. It's like falling from the height of the Mia Khalifa in Dubai or something. Or maybe even... But at some point, perhaps days later, the duo finally do reach the main floor, and JoJo manages to maneuver Dio to put him right in line with the statue of the Joestar family's guardian angel. The ensuing explosion gently places JoJo into the soft, caressing arms of the relieved Speedwagon, believing once and for all Dio has been bested. With Dio seemingly defeated, Speedwagon takes JoJo to the hospital, where he is tended to by his childhood sweetheart, Irina Pendleton. As the reunited couple go out for some fresh air, Jonathan's Joestar senses tingle. With a single sprong, the madman lunges at JoJo, but JoJo will surely not be taken by surprise so easily. After Dio caught him unawares at the mansion, he certainly learned a hard-won lesson to always be on guard to protect himself and those he loves. For what, the 5th time now, JoJo has the shame of allowing himself to be fooled? I mean, he's vulnerable clearly, but at some point you have to take some personal responsibility for crying out loud. The madman gets all up in JoJo's guts, and a couple of sparkles and rainbows later, JoJo feels whole again, but completely flabbergasted on how the man was able to have such a rejuvenating effect on his body. It is here that Baron Zeppeli explains Hamon, an energy created by the flow of one's blood, similar to the waves of light emitted from the sun, that can be harnessed through controlled breathing and used to amplify various martial arts techniques. He also tells JoJo that not only is Dio still alive, but he is also still in possession of the stone mask, and both must be destroyed if humanity is again to know peace. Zeppeli is committed to this endeavor, as it was his very hands that excavated the mask, unleashing its evil upon the world. And it is JoJo who is destined to train his abilities to harness the might of Hamon, as the only way to bring an end to Dio's reign of terror. It is then that Speedwagon arrives, with a lead to Dio's whereabouts, near the village of Windknight's lot. As the party makes their way to the village, I just want to point out there's like 2 seconds of animation of the horses pulling the carriage, and this 2 seconds alone has more frames than all of One Punch Man Season 3. No cap. Speaking of cap, JoJo is all dressed up in his Sherlock Holmes attire and thinks back to his love Irina with the fear of potentially never seeing her again being too much to bear. And by the way, JoJo wasn't in his detective getup when Speedwagon first told him where Dio was. He had to be like, yeah guys, I know we have to get to Dio while it's still daylight out to give us the best chance of defeating him and saving the world, yada yada yada, but my cosplay comes first. No wonder training JoJo drove Zeppeli to drinking. The carriage is then brought to a sudden stop, and the trio come face to face with Dio's minion, the zombified corpse of Jack the Ripper. Zeppeli fends him off with ease, the power of Hamon on display, leaving Speedwagon and JoJo in awe. He then tasks JoJo with finishing off the abomination without spilling a single drop of wine, as a test of his convictions and aptitude. At first the zombie gets the jump on JoJo, but he remains resolute in his convictions in vanquishing Dio. Steadying his breathing and fortifying his courage, it is in this tranquil state that JoJo has his epiphany.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
The wine he is holding conducts a Hamon from his foe, and through its vibrations he is able to locate his enemy and strike him with a fatal blow.
Excellent. Adversity has made the lad a Viking.
With the reanimated corpse of Jack the Ripper defeated, JoJo, Zeppeli, and Speedwagon journey onwards to the village of Windknight's lot, when they are suddenly ambushed by a boy using some kind of crazy Wile E. Coyote setup, and he makes off with their luggage. JoJo and Zeppeli feel this is an excellent opportunity to bring a potential guide into their fold, but it soon becomes apparent this boy was not in his right state of mind and was being hypnotized by an outside force. To what end, they ask themselves, as the sun sets, and the answer to that question makes itself abundantly clear. As an aside, what an insane setup for a graveyard. Not only are people buried right next to each other with no rhyme or reason or organization of any kind, but it's also right next to the water. Like you're gonna be out there fishing for guppies and all of a sudden you snag a kidney and a pair of toes? Oh well. Free bait, I guess. And speaking of bait, JoJo, Zeppeli, and Speedwagon bit into theirs hook, line, and sinker, as it was in fact Dio Brando back from the dead, who lured them here to put a final end to their meddling. As it turns out, when Dio was on the brink of death, his underling Wang Chan, are we sure J.K. Rowling didn't write this? Wang Chan provided Dio the much-needed sustenance he required, and also made sure he was kept warm and didn't catch a chill. Such a kind young man. This bought Dio enough time to replenish his vigor by consuming the life force from his unsuspecting victims. Kind of like when you're in the break room at work and the office talker sits down next to you yapping away for the rest of your break, and you can just feel your vitality being slowly sucked away from your body. Yeah. Kinda like that. Zeppeli takes first crack at shutting Dio up by sending Hamon down his arm and into his foe, but the dastardly devil has a few tricks up his sleeve and freezes Zeppeli's arm, stopping the flow of blood, rendering Zeppeli's attack mute. JoJo has a go and proves to be equally ineffective. Without the flow of blood, the duo are unable to unleash their Hamon to affect Dio, and are left battered and bruised, like a pair of avocados if you forget about them in the cupboard for more than 15 minutes. Pushing his advantage, Dio turns his attention to summoning two powerful knights from the 16th century, Tarkus and Bruford. And the long and short of their backstory is they were betrayed by Queen Elizabeth I. And now they're pretty ticked off. And I know what you're thinking. A member of the royal family with questionable character? How could it be? Dio then commands the pair to destroy his adversaries, starting with JoJo. Zeppeli looks on helpless to aid JoJo, as without blood flow to his arm, he is unable to use Hamon to heal himself. It is then that Speedwagon takes it upon himself to warm Zeppeli right up and get his blood pumping. Bruford senses JoJo as a worthy opponent and challenges him to single combat. Dio is assured his minions will put an end to his enemies once and for all, and recuses himself to continue his plans of conquering England with his zombie horde and then the world. Like an undead Rapunzel, Bruford attacks JoJo, forcing them both underwater. Watch out for those toes and kidneys. Putting JoJo at a severe disadvantage, as with no air, the body is unable to regulate Hamon. Now in his most desperate hour, JoJo calls upon the memory of his father for guidance. JoJo, you ill-mannered knob. Can you do anything right? Dio would have never found himself in such a predicament. Dio would have finished Bruford before being dragged under the water. Dio would have defeated Dio in the mansion. Dio would have never fed Danny grapes. Grapes are poison to dogs. Did you know that, JoJo? Of course not, you dim-witted twat. With the familiar words of encouragement from his father ringing in his ears, JoJo is compelled to dive even deeper, both underwater and into his past childhood trauma. It is then that he is stricken with a bout of inspiration. Windknight's lot is a coal mining town, meaning there is surely a pocket of air to be found underneath the nearby stones. Ah, yes, of course. Fortune smiles on JoJo as his suspicions are shown to be correct, and his lungs are once again filled with life-saving air, preparing him for an epic final showdown against his enemy. But first, I wonder how Speedwagon and Zeppeli are coming along. We last left off with JoJo trapped underwater in a match to the death with the resurrected manifestation of spite that is Bruford. In a desperate attempt to fill his lungs once again with Hamon-enabling oxygen, JoJo locates a pocket of air trapped underwater thanks to the local coal mining shafts. That wouldn't have been possible if Windknight's lot ran on nuclear power. Thank you, life-saving coal. Now fueled by the cool, crisp energy only coal power can provide, JoJo goes on the offensive.
Underwater, turquoise blue, overdrive!
This attack ends up being only a glancing blow, but it is enough to bring the fight back onto land, as Bruford responds with his own martial arts. Glare, flare, hair snare. Undaunted, JoJo presses onwards with another attack.
Sunlight yellow, overdrive!
This influx of Hamon brings the reanimated body of Bruford to his knees, the sacred energy dissolving the malice that animated Bruford and cleansing his soul. Oh, and the Hamon help too. Thank you, life-saving coal. The hatred and anger drains from Bruford as his humanity is released free from Dio's command. He is grateful to JoJo for this favor and seeks to respond in kind. He leaves JoJo his most prized possession, the sword given to him by his precious queen, Luck. And in light of JoJo's courage, he bestows upon it a new name befitting its now rightful champion. This act moves JoJo, and with inspired conviction again declares he will be the one to put an end to Dio's reign of tyranny. But this endeavor will have to wait, as Tarkus does not share in the sentimentalities of a Hallmark movie and lashes out at JoJo and his compatriots, leaving the quick-witted Zeppeli no choice but to hastily come up with a means to escape. He and JoJo amplify their body's natural magnetic field, pulling the surrounding leaves together to act as a parasail of sorts, taking them out of harm's way. Saikaru! Tarkus leaps at JoJo's party like a mad dog, bringing down the makeshift life raft onto what was once a training ground for knights. Tarkus then ensnares JoJo, leaving him nowhere to run, latching the door tight, leaving Speedwagon, Zeppeli, and Poco on the other side. JoJo has unwittingly found himself in an ancient sparring ground and home of the chain deathmatch. With the chain touching the stone ceiling, JoJo's Hamon is unable to have a direct path to affect Tarkus. The others watch on powerless to enter the enclosure, with the only means for JoJo to escape defeating Tarkus. Thinking back to the encouragement from his sister to stand up for himself, Poco shows tremendous courage, or one could say pluck, and crawls through a hole in the wall, managing to pull the lever to open the door despite taking a massive strike from Tarkus. Zeppeli rushes in, pondering if the prophecy recounted to him by his old master Tonpetty is meant to come to pass, with these very chambers to be his final resting place. In a flashback, we learn Zeppeli's interest in the workings of Hamon led him to Tibet, where he met Tonpetty, the one he would soon call master. This tutelage did not come without a price, however. In following the path of Hamon, Zeppeli's time and place of death was sealed, and that time and place is here and now. Zeppeli does not shy away from his fate and accepts his role in laying down his life so that JoJo may fulfill his destiny in ending Dio. With that said, Zeppeli will not be going down without a fight. Okay, he didn't put up much of a fight. With the waning of what little strength he had left, Zeppeli passes on to Jonathan his ultimate technique.
Ultimate deep pass overdrive!
Now with Baron Zeppeli's strength and the locked-in focus of post-nut clarity, JoJo is finally able to conquer his enemy and banish his spirit back to the abyss. As Zeppeli's life fades, he imparts JoJo with his final words.
JoJo, through you, I will live on forever, my son.
I wonder what JoJo found more traumatic, having yet another father figure die in his arms, or knowing somewhere along the line he lost his neat little detective hat. With a final moment to bid farewell to his friend, Jonathan and his remaining companions turn their attention to the remaining task at hand, defeating Dio and destroying the stone mask. Speaking of Dio, we check in on his humble abode to him making a deal with one of the village folk. If she pledges her soul to him, he promises neither he nor his minions will cause the child harm. A deal to which she desperately agrees to. I make the best deals. And in true Trumpian fashion, the deal doesn't go exactly the way the woman expects. Now one baron short of a Trump family photo, JoJo and company proceed to Windknight's lot. They know Dio intends to attack the village in order to add its citizens into his zombie horde. On their way, they run into Mr. Adams, who at first appears to be a normal human. Then he appears to be a normal Twitch streamer.
Nice young child.
Then he is revealed to instead be a creepy, menacing, amoral creature with only its own satisfaction in mind. Potato potato. In any case, JoJo makes quick work of the abomination and readies himself for what appears to be another foe coming down the road. Then it attacks. JoJo counters with a headbutt, a natural counter to such a move, surprising the newcomer who steadies JoJo advances, identifying himself as Dyer, an old friend of Zeppeli's. And that's not all, he's accompanied by Straizo, another of Zeppeli's old chums. And thirdly appears none other than Zeppeli's old sensei, Tom Petty. They had received a letter from Zeppeli earlier requesting aid, and are saddened to hear of his passing, but pledge themselves to JoJo's cause all the same, to destroy the stone mask and the self-proclaimed god who wields it. We open in Windknight's lot, to Poco's father scolding him.
Poco, where you been? How dare you leave the house like this?
Which makes sense. It's England in the 1800s. That kid is gonna get smacked no matter what he was doing. Whether he was in the house, left the house, fed the chickens, ate the chickens, only put in a 70-hour work week at the family chimney sweep business. Poco asks the whereabouts of his sister, and his father coldly tells him she was out looking for him, as we transition to Dio's lair and discover exactly where Poco's sister ended up. Fresh off his negotiations with the previous girl in his company, Dio seeks to further the art of the deal with Poco's 16-year-old sister, offering her youth everlasting in exchange for her eternal companionship. She rebukes his advances, and this is actually where Dio's Trumpian tendencies stop, as he respects the girl's wishes and leaves her be, although that is not to say the others in Dio's cabinet share in the same restraint, as the others in Dio's group chat insist on meeting the young maiden's acquaintance. But just then, with impeccable plot-specified timing, JoJo and friends arrive and confront this metaphorical and literal monster. Now armed with the combined harmonic might of both his own innate power and Baron Zeppeli's gifts, this impotent creature is dispatched with ease, reuniting Poco and his sister. There is now but one path forward, to carry onwards to the top of Dio's ivory tower for a final showdown. Dio is visibly surprised JoJo defeated his knights Tarkus and Bruford, and declares he will no longer hold on to any sentimentalities, and JoJo in turn declares his burning hatred towards the one he once called brother. As the two prepare to do battle, Dyer intercedes, claiming a prior stake on Dio's life, on behalf of his fallen comrade Zeppeli. I mean, Dio has been cockblocking JoJo, kicking his dog, poisoning his dad, stabbing his dad, and being an all-around wanker since they were schoolboys, but sure, have at it, bud. And have at it he does, utilizing his unique martial arts technique, and follows that up with a tomahawk chop. But Dio has forbidden techniques of his own, freezing Dyer's body and smashing him into 1,000 pieces. Well, closer to 136 by my count. Or make that 136 plus 1, as Dyer's head falls into a bed of roses, and as a final act of defiance, he ensures the world will know that free men stood against a tyrant, and before this battle was over, even a god king can bleed. Seeing the effect energy-infused objects have on Dio, JoJo takes up his sword, pouring into it the sacred energy of life. No, not coal, the next best thing, Hamon, and prepares to slice Dio in twain. This insolence incenses Dio.
You dare to touch me with your Hamon! More disgusting than frog urine!
Hey, what's your problem, man?
Tom Petty and Straizo offer to deal with Dio's underlings, while JoJo and his #1 hype man take care of Dio. With the fate of the world in the balance, JoJo makes his first move, Pocket Roses, and moves to Dio's right, where he is still blinded by Dyer's final act of defiance. He then strikes out, drawing
First blood.
With Dio momentarily stunned by JoJo's cunning, Pluck is drawn skyward and brought down with a mighty crash, slitting Dio down the middle and giving our heroes a moment to dare evil has been vanquished. But within Dio's spite and malice still burns with a biting cold, and he freezes JoJo's arm, grabbing his carotid artery, threatening to pull it loose and consume his life essence. But that's not all he has to say. Wouldn't you know it, in the villain's moment of victory, he can't help himself from monologuing how cool he is and how stinky JoJo is. This small window of probably hours provides just enough time for a nearby brazier to melt the ice entrapping JoJo, allowing the chance to free himself from Dio's grasp.
I can't let you get close.
Tipping the scales in the battle of the warmth of life against the coldness of death itself. A song of ice and fire, if you will. And in this song, the trumpet of the indomitable human spirit pierced the night with a defiant cry.
Sunlight yellow overdrive! No!
He's done it!
It didn't work. But if you think setback after 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 setback would be enough to set Jonathan Joestar back, you've got another thing coming. As he again sets his hands ablaze, pressing himself upon Dio, and with a final surge of fiery conviction, he is able to melt away Dio's frozen armor, and with finality vanquish Dio Brando and his dastardly quest to enslave the world. Or did he? No, he didn't, but he doesn't know that yet. No spoilers. With the battle seemingly won and the dark power of the stone mask destroyed, JoJo is finally able to return back to a life of normality. He marries his childhood sweetheart, Irina, and plans to embark to America for a honeymoon before her family can discover her premarital pregnancy. Speedwagon rushes to see JoJo off and wish the happy couple safe travels when he runs across 4 men carrying a peculiar-looking box. A peculiar-looking vampire-sized box. A peculiar-looking vampire-sized box emitting the faintest whispers of a thirst for blood. Oh well, I'm sure it's nothing. As the newlyweds make their way from the deck of the ship to the dining hall, Jonathan smokes his head on the top of a doorframe. And it's 6'5", 230 pounds. Yeah, that'll happen. And as someone who's 6'5" myself, you know, you just gotta walk those off. He'll be fine. And also, if you look at where Irina stands relative to JoJo, she's got to be like 6 feet tall herself. In high heels, she'd be approaching Brienne of Tarth levels of woman. Well, there's something JoJo and Tormund Giantsbane have in common, and Yuji Itadori.
どんな女がタイプだ。
ケツとタッパのでかい女の子かな。ジェニファー・ローレンスとか。
They make their way to dinner, and JoJo insists Irina try the wine despite her protests. Maybe he's having second thoughts about this having kids business. But then he sees something that causes him to drop his wine in utter disbelief. Cho Chang in the flesh. Or was it Wang Chan? At any rate, his presence can only mean one thing. J.K. Rowling really did have a hand in writing this script. Okay, 2 things. The second thing being Dio Brando is still alive and aboard the ship. JoJo bids Irina to return to the safety of their cabin and lock the doors while he confronts Dio. And being the obedient wife, Irina heeds the command of her husband to avoid any danger.
Jonathan!
God damn it, woman! As it turns out, when Dio was falling from the top of his lair after the defeat he suffered at the hands of JoJo, he was able to decapitate himself, stopping the flow of Hamon to his brain and allowing himself the opportunity to plot his revenge. And that peculiar-looking vampire-sized box giving off the faintest whisper of a thirst for blood? Wouldn't you know it, it was Dio all along. Dio is now determined to take JoJo as his new host body, being the only human that has earned his respect. As the other passengers aboard the ship begin to turn to zombies one by one, wreaking havoc among the dwindling survivors, Dio fires his laser eyes, aiming to sever JoJo's head to make way for his own. But it ends up being a mere glancing blow, a mere flesh wound, as Wang Chan moves in to finish the job. Determined to do what he must to save his beloved, JoJo summons forth the entirety of the remaining Hamon left to him in this world, and finger blasts Wang's noggin to pieces, flinging the remains of his corpse onto the screw shaft of the ship, which if left unchecked, would inevitably lead to the buildup of steam and subsequent explosion of the entire ship. Faced with this impending doom, JoJo and Irina share a moment that feels like an eternity. Big ups to the zombie horde to chill out for a while the newlyweds fit in one final snogging. As the ship begins to buckle under the mounting pressure, JoJo bids Irina to rescue the lone surviving babe and escape the destruction fated for those left aboard the ship. Dio sends his neck tendrils in a last-ditch effort to decapitate JoJo and steal his body, but JoJo is too quick and removes a piece of shrapnel from his back and stabs Dio in the neck, I guess? I don't know. But hey, it's enough to subdue Dio. It ain't stupid if it works. This final gambit gives Irina enough time to enclose herself in Dio's velvet boudoir, along with the surviving baby. With the vessel's edging complete, the ship's pressure can be contained no longer and erupts in a violent explosion, destroying the remaining villains and leaving Irina and the baby without a scratch. I guess it's a good thing that boudoir was lined with velvet, or that may have gone south real fast. With a final shot in the Phantom Blood arc, we cut to an ancient ruin in the jungles of Mexico, to a menacing humanoid figure encased in stone. But that is a bizarre recap for another time.